Hey everybody, John Felt here, and this is the BWO Weather Weekly Weather Briefing, Ag Weather Briefing for June 14th. I think the theme of this briefing is going to be unusually hot and increasingly muggy conditions as we get through this weekend into next week. I'm also going to be talking about some areas of very heavy rain, but that's going to be confined to a smaller area of the upper Midwest. Hey, let's get started right away. Well, starting with looking at our weather risks, these are the areas I'm focusing on. This area in red, that's the high heat and humidity, and then this area up here, severe storms and heavy rain. So that's what I'll be focusing on in this week's briefing. Now, we certainly had really unusually heavy rain, record rain down in South Florida last week. We had over 2 feet of rain, and I think that'll probably average some spots near 30 inches of rain in this area right here. And I'll be talking about that a little bit more in this briefing later in the briefing. So here's the rain we had last week. Overall, quite a bit quieter than what we saw in May. Some heavy rain across parts of Kansas and parts of southwest Missouri. But most areas, most of the ag growing regions, especially Iowa, Illinois, Ohio, Indiana, fairly quiet last week. We did get a fairly soaking rain in Nebraska. Now, temperatures last week, we could almost do a dividing line right here. West of that line, a little bit above normal. East of that line, quite a bit cooler in this region right here. Some pleasant break from the heat. So we're going to go from this cool weather here just as much as this was below normal, 5 degrees below normal. That's going to be even more so above normal as we get into the week. Now, the hottest temperatures of the week, anything in yellow or in orange above 95. Look at Kansas here. This darker orange, that's above 100, and the red is above 105. This area in green here, that was in the 80s, so we had some nice weather. That's going to be as much as 20 degrees hotter this week. So the moisture is still fairly dry over except most of the area except the plains, but we're starting to get that moisture streaming back up to the north here from the Gulf. And we will be getting dew points, muggier, higher dew points, so that's going to combine with that heat, and it's going to feel pretty miserable. This will be our first really summer-like weather for many areas as we get into this weekend and into the week. Now, the reason why this big dome of high pressure right here, and that dome is going to be shifting to the east, and look at the shades of red. That's a darker shade of red, so that means that high pressure is going to be intensifying as it pushes from the Midwest into the east and northeast. So we're looking at temperatures really soaring, but the northeast U.S., I think it's going to be in the news. The Great Lakes, the Appalachian region here, upper northern Appalachians into the northeast U.S. And the reason why, take a look at the heat risk readings, and purple is the highest level. So you can see here, Midwest starting tomorrow, and then it just builds and pushes off to the east and northeast as we get into the week. Quite a few temperatures are forecast to be set, high temperature records. Most of them are going to be from, again, the Appalachians, the eastern Corn Belt, up into the northeast U.S. next week. Okay, so let's talk about precipitation here. And one of the things I brought up last week was how warm, actually a lot of indicators globally of hot weather. And my posts will be talking about that on and off for a long time. But I wanted to sort of point out how warm the Caribbean is, and we're at record levels. So what that does is the moisture can evaporate from the ocean surface with that warm water, and it can stream inland. And that's what we saw last week. So regardless of whether it's a named tropical system, that moisture streams inland, you can get very heavy rain. And I think anywhere along this region here is going to be prone to that right through the summer months. So what we see this week is we do see right along the coast with that moisture the possibility of getting some very heavy rain. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. I wanted to go back here and point out there is also the possibility of some circulation developing here, and if that does develop, that'll enhance the inflow of moisture. Okay, but back to the Midwest. This is where we expect the really heavy rain, and the reason why is there's a stationary front here, so we're going to have waves of energy moving along that low pressure. So we could have 3 to 5 inches of rain over Minnesota and smaller parts of surrounding states this week, as well as the chance of daily severe storms. Okay, so let's take a look at week 2 here. And the question is, how long will the above normal temperatures last? Well, they might peak in the Midwest over the weekend into early of the week, and then they might peak in the Northeast U.S. in the 6 to 10 day period. But even in week 2, it looks like that warm weather, that hot weather can continue, and with moisture, higher dew points, that means we're going to probably have quite a few days with temperatures well into the 90s and a daily chance of rain. It might be a lower chance, but with that moisture, afternoon and evening thunderstorms. So summer weather and even a little bit hotter than what would be normal this time of year. So to end the briefing, I want to show you again, once again, the weather risks this week: the unusually hot weather in the red and the heavy rain in the green. That's this week's weather briefing. If you have any questions, hey, always send me an email, john.bwoweather@gmail.com. Take care.